All right, welcome to part 26 of my overview of the Bible story. We are in exile, just like my throat is in exile today. Sorry guys, my voice, it's in exile, but the story has to go on, right? The story doesn't stop just because my throat stops. So we're in exile. Remember, King Nebuchadnezzar took Daniel and his 3 friends and other people over into Babylon. And this is called the exile. And the people are called exiles. Okay, so Daniel and his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they are exiles. And the kingdom of Israel got taken up exile by the Assyrian kingdom up here. But the story is following these guys, this group of people from Judah. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to talk about Ezekiel. All right, so Ezekiel lived at the same time as Daniel. Okay, just a bit of a different, they're in a different place. Okay, now King Nebuchadnezzar, when he attacked Jerusalem, he kind of did it in different phases. Okay, the first time he took Daniel and his friends and a bunch of other people over to Babylon, and then he attacked again and he took Ezekiel at this time. And then about 10 years after this, he came and destroyed the temple in 586 BC. Okay, but Ezekiel got taken off to exile about 10 years before the temple was destroyed. Okay, now Ezekiel is a priest, or he was a priest. So what is a priest supposed to do if he can't do his job? A priest's job is very specific. Can a priest work from anywhere? No, they can't work from anywhere. There's one place, that's the temple. Before the temple, it was the tabernacle. Remember, Aaron was the first priest. Aaron and his sons, they just worked at the tabernacle. And then when Solomon built the temple, the priests, they did their job right there. They weren't allowed to do their job other places. There was only one place. And what was their job? Their job was to make atonement for the sins of the people, to deal with blood. Remember, they're dealing with animal sacrifices and stuff like that, right? It's so that the people can be forgiven of their sins and be one again with God, to be made right with God. That's the job of a priest. Well, if a priest is taken away from the temple, what are they supposed to do? Well, God uses priests in the time of the exile as prophets. He uses them as prophets. He speaks through them, says, go tell the people this, this, and this. Okay? So we see Ezekiel, even though he's a priest, he's actually a prophet now. Okay? Now, God calls Ezekiel this title. It's a very interesting title. He calls Ezekiel Son of Man. He always says, Son of Man, do this or do that or whatever. Okay? So interesting, Son of Man, all right? So let's see what it says. In my 30th year, okay, so this is Ezekiel speaking. He's 30 years old. In my 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day, while I was among the exiles by the Kebar River, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. Interesting. The heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. What is a vision? Well, a vision is kind of like a dream, except you're awake and you're seeing something that maybe other people can't see. So you're seeing something interesting. It's not normal. All right, but that's a vision. Okay, so let's see what God's going to say to this Son of Man, Ezekiel. So he said to me, Son of man, stand up on your feet, and I will speak to you. As he spoke, the Spirit came into me and raised me to my feet. And I heard him speaking to me. He said, Son of man, I am sending you to the Israelites, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their ancestors have been in revolt against me to this very day. The people to whom I'm sending you are obstinate and stubborn. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says, and whether they listen or fail to listen, for they are a rebellious people, they will know that a prophet has been among them. Okay? God himself is calling Ezekiel a prophet. Right? Okay, so God's sending Ezekiel to the Israelites who are in exile with him. Right? So, but the people of Israel are not willing to listen to you. Okay, God is speaking here. He says, look, son of man, they're not going to listen to you because they are not willing to listen to me. For all the Israelites are hardened and obstinate. But I will make you as unyielding and hardened as they are. I will make your forehead like the hardest stone, harder than flint. Do not be afraid of them or terrified by them, though they are a rebellious people. See how often God is saying, look, my people, the Israelites, are just, they're stubborn, they're stiff-necked people, they're rebellious. David says, Ezekiel, don't be afraid of them. I am going to make you as hard as, I'm going to give make your forehead like the hardest stone. Okay. So the Spirit then lifted me up and took me away, and I went in bitterness and in the anger of my spirit, with the strong hand of Yahweh on me. Ezekiel is bitter. Why is he bitter? It's because Yahweh is bitter, right? The Spirit of Yahweh is in or on Ezekiel. A Spirit then lifted me up. Okay, it's like the Spirit went into Ezekiel and lifted him up and took him away. So the reason Ezekiel is bitter is because the Spirit of God himself is in him, and God is bitter. Let me ask you a question. What is the best attitude to have in life? Is it good to be positive or negative, happy or sad? What is the best attitude? Well, the best attitude is whatever attitude God has in a situation, right? If God is happy and his Spirit is in us, well, we need to be happy too, right? Because we're linked. If we're linked to God, right? Then if God is happy, we're happy. If God is angry, we also need to be angry. We also need to be bitter, right? And the big mistake throughout the Bible is that God is not happy about what's going on, but the people don't really care. They're just being positive and, let's go drink some beer, guys. Let's have a good time. Let's have a party. And God is not happy, right? So it's good to be bitter if God is bitter. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So let's keep reading. In the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day, while I was sitting in my house, and the elders of Judah were sitting before me, the hand of the sovereign Lord came on me there. I looked, and I saw a figure like that of a man. From what appeared to be his waist down, he was like fire, and from there up, his appearance was as bright as glowing metal. He stretched out what looked like a hand and took me by the hair of my head. The Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven, and in visions of God, he took me to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the north gate of the inner court, where the idol that provokes to jealousy stood. And there before me was the glory of the God of Israel. as in the vision I had seen in the plain. Wow. Still recording? We're still recording, guys. So Ezekiel is seeing a man, someone who looks like a man. Remember in the last episode with Daniel's friends in the fire? Remember? Nebuchadnezzar said, "Hey guys, did we put 3 men in the fire? Because I can see a 4th guy, and the 4th guy looks like the son of the gods." This weird, bright figure in the fire. Well, now Ezekiel is seeing one like a man who's glowing like fire. Interesting, right? So then he said to me, "Son of man." Okay, so remember, the Spirit takes Ezekiel up, and he's in visions. He's taking him back to Jerusalem. Okay, remember, in reality, Ezekiel is not in Jerusalem now, but now in visions, God is going to take him back to Jerusalem. Okay, so he's still going to see the temple. The temple has not been destroyed yet at this point. He's taking him back there to see, what's going on there. Okay, then he said to me, "Son of man, look toward the north." So I looked, and in the entrance north of the gate of the altar, I saw this idol of jealousy. And he said to me, "Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The utterly detestable things the Israelites are doing here? Things that will drive me far from my sanctuary?" Okay, so look at this idol of jealousy. What is that? I don't know. Some kind of an idol. Maybe it looked kind of like this. Who knows? Remember? The people were always offering their babies to false gods. So maybe it was some sort of an idol like this somewhere at the temple. Okay. Now, notice this interesting phrase here, what God says. Okay. He says, "Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The utterly detestable things the Israelites are doing here? Things that will drive me far from my sanctuary." Why? So the things the Israelites are doing are going to push God far from his sanctuary. Sanctuary is his house, his temple. Let me ask you a question. Why didn't God kick his people out of the land and stay living in it himself? We know he did kick his people out. At this point, there are a few people left there. Okay. But why didn't God just say, "Okay, you guys, you're out of here. I'm going to stay living here because this is my land"? Remember a few episodes ago, I asked you this question. If a woman, hates her husband and she wants to go, and cheat on him, well, then she needs to go and live with this guy, right? So he should kick her out of the house and go live there. But the problem is that this guy, he can't just stay living in his house because the house was made for them together. He wanted it to be their own, like their house together. So if she's out of the house, well, it's like he's also going to go into exile now, because that's how a covenant is, right? When covenant is broken, both parties end up in exile. So now it's like we're also going to see God himself in exile. He's not going to stay in his temple. Okay? So just remember that. It's kind of an interesting idea, right? So he said to me, "Have you seen this, son of man? Is it a trivial matter for the people of Judah to do the detestable things they are doing here? Must they also fill the land with violence and continually arouse my anger?" They're so violent, these people. They do so much bad stuff. And it's terrible, right? It's discouraging. Now look at this interesting passage, okay? Very interesting. "Then I heard him call out in a loud voice," okay? So God is calling out in a loud voice, "Bring near those who are appointed to execute judgment on the city." each with a weapon in his hand. And I saw 6 men coming from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with a deadly weapon in his hand. With them was a man clothed in linen, who had a writing kit at his side. They came in and stood beside the bronze altar. Okay, so Yahweh is saying in a loud voice, bring in those who are appointed to execute judgment on the city of Jerusalem. Okay, so 6 guys come in with a weapon, right? So this is all taking place at the temple. Okay, so we have 6 guys with weapons who are going to execute judgment on the city. But we have a mysterious guy, a 7th guy here, clothed in linen, that's a kind of material, with a writing kit. Weird, who's that guy? Now, linen was the clothing of priests. Okay, so look at this picture here. Here's a priest wearing linen. Nice white, clean kind of a cloth. Actually, this is Melchizedek. Okay, in this picture here, bringing out bread and wine, remember, to Abraham. And now, in the story with Ezekiel, we see another guy on the same mountain, Mount Moriah, remember Jerusalem. And now this priest is clothed in linen. He's got a writing kit. So is there going to be a link between this guy with a writing kit and Melchizedek? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we got the temple. We got 6 guys with weapons. We got the mysterious 7th guy with the writing kit, clothed in linen. What's God going to say? Then Yahweh called to the man clothed in linen who had the writing kit at his side and said to him, go throughout the city of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it. Interesting. Yahweh is telling the guy clothed in linen, hey, go throughout the city and put a mark on the foreheads of the people who grieve and lament over all the detestable things done in the city, okay? So this guy is going to go through the city. The guy clothed in linen. He's not going to put a mark on the happy people. He's going to put a mark on the foreheads of the sad people, the people who lament over all the evil that's done in the city. Okay, interesting. As I listened, he said to the others, okay, so Yahweh's talking now to the 6 guys with the weapons, follow him throughout the city and kill. Okay, follow the guy with the writing kit who's going and putting like a mark on the foreheads. The 6 guys are going to follow that guy and slaughter. Kill without showing pity or compassion. Slaughter the old men, the young men and women, the mothers and children, but do not touch anyone who has the mark. Begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the old men who were in front of the temple. They started right there at the temple. The old men who were at the temple. Whoa. Now, I want you to remember this picture for later in the story. Okay? Remember the temple. Remember old men. And remember a guy doing writing. Okay? Just put that image in your mind for later in the story. Temple, old men, man, like a priest, doing some writing. Keep that in mind for later. So the 6 guys with weapons, they obey Yahweh. They start going and doing it. Man, begin in my sanctuary, okay? Just slaughter everybody. Not everybody. Everybody who doesn't have the mark on their forehead. And who's putting the mark on the forehead? The mysterious guy in linen with the writing kit. whoever doesn't have the mark, okay, gets killed. Whoever does have the mark lives. Now, look at this word. What does this word mean, mark? In Hebrew, this is the word tav. Tav. And it's actually a letter. Just like in English, we have the letter like X. If I say put a mark on this piece of paper, you might put like an X. So X is a letter, but it's also a mark, right? Well, in Hebrew, in early Hebrew, the word tav, which is the letter for mark, that was this symbol here. Okay, interesting. And then modern Hebrew, it's this. This is the letter tav. But back in the olden days, it was this symbol. Interesting. At this point, we don't know what this symbol means, but just look at it a bit. It's interesting because later on in the story, this symbol is going to become very important. Okay, now remember back in Egypt, the people had to put a mark on their doorposts, right? Remember, God said he's going to come through Egypt, right, and kill all the firstborn, except the people who have the blood, the mark on their doorposts, right? So he said, the blood will be a mark for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. Okay, so the mark, the blood. There's a connection between the mark and the blood. So maybe this guy in linen, now in the story in Ezekiel, who's going out throughout the city marking people on their forehead, maybe it's with blood. Maybe it's that symbol. That's that symbol, right? I don't know. I'm not sure. We don't really know all the details here. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Okay. Now notice, the happy people die. It's the sad people who have the mark on their foreheads. So, if God is not happy about something, but people are happy, that's not a good situation to be in, right? If God's not happy about something, our attitude needs to match God's attitude. And it's really serious. This is a matter of life and death, right? Because what is the guy with the writing kit doing? He's putting a mark on the people who grieve and lament over the state of the city. He's not putting a mark on these people's heads. And the 6 guys with weapons who are following the guy with the writing kit, I mean, those 6 guys are slaughtering all the people, right? So just keep in mind, this is really important. It's a matter of life and death, that our attitude in life matches Yahweh's attitude. Okay? So then the man in linen, with the writing kit at his side, brought back word, saying, I have done as you commanded. Okay, so he went through the whole city, comes back and says, it's finished. It's finished. I've done the work. Okay. Interesting. We don't really know what happens next. I mean, it's a vision, right? It's a vision. So Ezekiel is there in Jerusalem in like a vision, but he's still back in, Babylon. I don't know. It's kind of hard to understand, right? But then, so we see God is going to leave the city, right? God's decided he's going to go into exile kind of himself, right? So look what it says here. The glory of the Lord went up from within the city and stopped above the mountain east of it. Okay, so here is the Jerusalem. Right here is Mount Moriah, where the temple is. And then there's a mountain east of this mountain called the Mount of Olives. Okay, and that's going to become more important later in the story. Okay, so just remember, this bigger mountain over here is the Mount of Olives, right? If you go to Jerusalem today and you are on the Temple Mount and you're looking east, there's a little valley here called the Kidron Valley, and then the Mount of Olives is much bigger than this little hill here. This is, it's not really a mountain. I mean, by Canadian standards, it's not a mountain. It's a hill. It's a high hill, okay, called the Mount of Olives. Okay, so that's going to become important later on in the story. So God's presence, we see, goes up from Jerusalem, and then it stops over the Mount of Olives for some reason. Anyway, I don't know. Kind of interesting. So later in the book of Ezekiel, God gives Ezekiel a vision of a valley with a lot of dry bones in the valley. Okay, and God asks Ezekiel a question. He says, "Son of man, can these bones live?" What do you think? These dead bones, dry bones here, can they live? Can they come back to life? And Ezekiel says, "Only you know, Yahweh." Look, I don't know. Like, you know, you're God. I'm not God, right? And what? So then, what does Yahweh tell Ezekiel? He says, "So then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up, and our hope is gone. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord when I open your graves and bring you up from them. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord." Man, what a prophecy. Okay, right now the Israelites, who are a rebellious, stiff-necked people, they're way over in exile. They feel dead. Are we ever going to get to go back? We already know from the prophet Jeremiah, remember, that the exile is going to be 70 years. But 70 years is a long time, right? That's a person's life. 70 years old, right? So the people are feeling really dead. They basically are dead, over in exile. But God's saying, I'm going to bring you back together like these dry bones. I'm going to put, flesh and skin on you, and I'm going to breathe my life into you again, and you're going to go back to Israel. So God is giving just an amazing prophecy here about the resurrection of his people, Israel, the Israelites. Okay, and then at the end of the book of Ezekiel, we see a mysterious new temple. So God, he's giving Ezekiel visions, right? So we see this very interesting thing right at the end, the last 8 chapters in the book of Ezekiel. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at that. In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after Jerusalem had been struck down, on that very day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he took me there. In visions of God he took me to the land of Israel, and set me on a very high mountain, on whose southern slope was a structure that resembled a city. Interesting. So he's going back to Jerusalem, and now he's on a very high mountain. Huh? That's interesting. Okay. Then the man brought me to the gate facing east, and I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roar of rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. The vision I saw was like the vision I had seen when he came to destroy the city, and like the visions I had seen by the Kebar River, and I fell face down. Still recording? We're still recording, guys. So I fell face down. The glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gate facing east. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Okay, so remember before, the presence of God left the temple and went eastward, but now the presence of God is coming back from the east into this new mysterious temple. Interesting. And the temple is on a very high mountain now. Weird. Okay? So we see Yahweh coming back, but now this mountain is like a tall mountain. How does that work? Weird. Well, in the next episode, we're going to take a look at some more prophecies about this hill. Remember, this is the center of the world from God's perspective, and there are prophecies about this hill that it's going to become the highest mountain in the world, higher than every other mountain. I mean, right now, if you go there, it's not even a mountain. It's this little place with some buildings on it. You know, it's not even as high as the Mount of Olives. But the future, we get these pictures. It's going to be the highest mountain in the world. Okay? So interesting. So we know that this vision about the future temple, it's somehow in the future. Okay? So he's not showing Ezekiel. Yahweh's not showing Ezekiel something that's going to happen right away. It's going to be somewhere in the distant future. Okay? So one of the hard things about prophecy, reading prophecies, is knowing when is this going to happen. You know, God gives us like these pictures. Well, where does this picture fit? Is it going to be here? Or is it going to be here or way over there? It's kind of a mystery. It's like a puzzle. And we're going to talk a bit more about that in the next episode. Okay? But let's see how this book ends. Okay? So then Yahweh says this, Son of man, this is the place of my throne, and the place of for the soles of my feet. This is where I will live among the Israelites forever. The people of Israel will never again defile my holy name. Wow. Okay, so he says three things here. Yahweh's saying, this place where the temple is, the mountain, it's going to be lifted up higher than the other mountains. This mountain, this is the place of my throne. This is God speaking. And the place for the soles of my feet. Whoa, that means he has feet, which means he's got a physical body. So we can see here a hint of what, God is going to put his feet there. That's the place of his feet. This is where I will live among the Israelites forever. Whoa, forever? He's going to live among the Israelites. Man, the people of Israel will never again defile my holy name. Okay, so a time is coming where the Israelites will never again defile his name. Remember, so far in the story, they're just a rebellious people. They're defiling God's name. How? By making idols and by sacrificing their children to false gods and doing all kinds of violence and wickedness. And they're bringing shame on the name of God. But in the future, God is saying this. The people of Israel will never again defile my holy name. That is incredible. Wow. Okay, now let's look at the last words in the book of Ezekiel. And the name of the city from that time on will be Yahweh is there. That's going to be the name of the city. Yahweh saying this. The name of Jerusalem It's going to be, from that time on, will be Yahweh is there. What a name for a city. Oh, man. Yahweh. Yes! Yahweh's going to be there. Man, I'm excited, guys. Well, that's it for part 26. In the next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about the prophets. Take a little bit more look at some of these kind of snapshots of different things about the future. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. I love you so much. Hope you're doing great. And as always, I'll see you over in the next episode of Mark's Bible Overview. Take care.